so excited about seeing her, I forgot to shake her husband's hand.
Well, good morning to you. So glad that you're here. We're going to invite you to stand and worship this morning as we sing praises to the Lord.
did double duty. You didn't like have get enough from one side, you decided to go up again, right? Well, we just want to say thank you today. I know the rest of the community will be saying thank you to you with free meals and that sort of thing. I did want to remind you that, and thank you for your help on Thursday. If you haven't read the bulletin yet, and I know some of you don't or didn't, but we fed 141 first responders. We also fed our computer technician because he was here working on our computer, and I said, "You got to have lunch. We've got plenty. Come eat with us." And 23 helpers. And I know others of you helped, but you weren't there that day. You know that, but we couldn't have done it without you. And they were so grateful. We had Hall County Fire Department, Hall County Sheriff's Department, Oakwood Police Department, Flowery Branch Police Department, Gainesville Police Department, and the GBI here. And, they're part of the Sheriff's Department. They are part of the Sheriff's Department. And they told us we could count all the SWAT guys twice. And they were in the middle. They wrote training to come eat with us. So we are so grateful that they did. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah, we got to give a hand to Wayne. Wayne, our chef. Ran the kitchen with precision. Oh, man, it was great. A couple other things. This is your last day to bring the shoe boxes. If any of them show up, trickle in on Wednesday, I will take them Thursday morning. But those are going tomorrow. Thank you, Kathy, for doing that. It says we're going to have a Thanksgiving potluck on the November the 18th. That's going to be following our quarterly church conference. But we don't have potlucks around here. We're going to have a pot faith, okay? We're going to trust God for and give and take the gift from Him. We were just hopefully will be able to be with us for that. Deacons meeting is going to happen right after church in the conference room. And if you're on the finance committee, please watch for an email from me this afternoon, and then to give instructions to you for some things you need to do since our chairman is out today with his wife sick. By the way, it was on this date, 1620, that 41 Puritan separatists arrived at Plymouth Rock, Massachusetts. They were going to look for someplace further south, but they were out of food. And as the leader said, and mostly they were out of beer. It was also on this date in 1793 that William Carey arrived in India and began what we know today as the modern missionary movement. That has been going on since that date in 1793. That's right. Today was the date that World War I ended. I want to thank you for your patience with me in the last couple of days, and tomorrow, the next day. I'll be out of pocket for 2 days as I move my mother down here. I want to thank Bruce for going with me the other day, and several of the rest of you, Vinny and Jim, for coming and helping me move her furniture in the other day. That made it a lot easier, a lot easier. But I'm going to get her tomorrow and bring her back Tuesday. And life at the Reynolds house is going to change just a little bit. But she's going to be moving in at the Waterford at Oakwood. And so be your patience with us, and that is great. It's good to see some of you back this morning. I don't know why she had to leave, but we'll find out. That was Amanda. Then we prayed for her daughter on Wednesday night. Sir? Yeah. And if you haven't noticed, the lady in the pink hat is with us. Yes, we're so glad. So glad to see her here. So I'm not going to make her stand up, but the rest of you is able to stand up and greet one another. Greet your neighbors.
to the depths of the sea. Creation's revealing your majesty. From the colors of fall to the fragrance of spring. Every creature unique in the song that it sings. All exclaiming, indescribable, uncontainable. You place the stars in the sky and you know them by name. You are amazing, God. All powerful, untamable, awestruck we fall to our knees as we humbly proclaim. You are amazing, God. Who has told every lightning bolt where it should go? Or seen heavenly storehouses laden with snow? Who imagined the sun gives source to its light, yet conceals it to bring us the coolness of night? None can fathom, indescribable, uncontainable. You place the stars in the sky and you know them by name. You are amazing, God. All powerful, untamable, all we fall to our knees as we humbly proclaim. You are amazing, God. You are amazing, God. Indescribable, uncontainable. You place the stars in the sky and you know them by name. You are amazing, God. All powerful, untamable, awestruck we fall to our knees as we humbly proclaim. You are amazing, God. Indescribable, uncontainable. You place the stars in the sky and you know them by name. You are amazing, God. Incomparable, unchangeable. You see the depths of my heart and you love me the same. You are amazing, God. You are amazing, God.
Let us pray. You are amazing, God. We just thank you for all you do for us each and every day. And we just take this time today to give out a small portion of what you have so richly blessed us with, dear Lord. And we just pray that you would take it and multiply it to others for your kingdom. And we just pray for those that are not with us today, dear Lord, because of sickness or tragedy or whatever it may be. We just pray for them, dear Lord, that they would be back with us next door today. Dear Lord, we just hope Dr. Mine, we just lift him up as he brings your message this morning. And just pray that you would just say the words that you have to. And that's all he's saying in your grace and holy name.
His gifts. Father, I'm so grateful for the way you bless us. Father, may we be found faithful. If you were to return this afternoon, in the middle of the football game, or in the middle of our nap, or in the middle of whatever activity we are doing on a normal Sunday afternoon, may you find us faithful. Because more than that, you bless greatly. Thank you for the way you love us. Most of all, Lord, we thank you for Jesus, who does love us so. For it's in His name we pray. Amen. Shipwreck faith.
count a million times people asking me how I can praise you with all that I've gone through. The question just amazes me. Can circumstances possibly change who I forever am in you? Maybe since my life was changed long before these rainy days, it's never really ever crossed my mind to turn my back on you, oh Lord, my only shelter from the storm. But instead I grow closer to these times. So I pray, bring me joy, bring me peace, bring the chance to be free, bring me anything that brings you glory. And I know there'll be days when this life brings me pain, but if that's what it takes to praise you, Jesus, bring the rain. I am yours regardless of the clouds that may loom above, because you are much greater than my pain. You made a way for me, suffering your destiny. So tell me, what's a little rain? So I pray, bring me joy, bring me peace, bring the chance to be free, bring me anything that brings you glory. And I know there'll be days when this life brings me pain, but if that's what it takes to praise you, Jesus, bring rain. Oh, sing it now. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. Is the Lord God Almighty. Now forever sing, holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. Is the Lord God Almighty. Everybody sing, holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. Is the Lord God Almighty. Finally, there is none like you. No one else can touch my heart like you do. And
have gone too far. Go back. I wrote this on Monday morning. Started about 8:30 or so. It was November the 5th. It was written for you to hear today on Sunday, November the 11th. And with all the events of this week, including the First Responders Luncheon and the miles I have traveled back and forth to North Carolina, it feels like I wrote this a month ago. We live in such a volatile, changing world that when I wrote this, it could have been old news. It's quite plausible that the Russians or the North Koreans or the Chinese or some jihadist group could have launched a nuclear attack against the United States. That would have changed the message for Sunday, I would think. It's also possible that me or you or someone we know and love assumed room temperature in that week. That would change everything. You know the hurricane season is not over yet, right? You know that. There could be one that came and completely wiped out. I mean, sent tornadoes up this way and wiped out everything you see before you. Doctors could have told me that I only have weeks to live due to some incurable disease. For that matter, Elvis may have showed up at the Lakeshore Mall. President Trump could have stopped tweeting. His attackers could have stopped attacking. The economy could have gone south again because people are basically no good. If you think people are basically good, you really do need to read your Bible again. People are basically not good. And what little retirement you and I have could now be bankrupt. Those of you who tithe could have figured out that I'm not nearly as spiritual as you think I am, and I don't know nearly as much as you thought I did, and you quit. Jesus could have returned. The Billy Graham Evangelistic Association could have given up on evangelism. Or I could have finally said, Lord, I'm really tired of doing this and I don't want to do it anymore, and I quit. Could have. If you think that's depressing, then you haven't read the book of Ecclesiastes lately. Because Solomon wrote some things in there when he called himself a preacher that makes what I just said sound like a positive motivational book. In Ecclesiastes 9:11, Solomon said, "The race is not to the swift, nor battle to the strong, nor does food come to the wise, or wealth to the brilliant, or favor to the learned, but time and chance happen to them all." In other words, the rain falls equally on the sinful and the blessed. Nothing is applied otherwise. Earlier in chapter 3, old King Solomon said there's a time for everything, a season. For every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build. But what I have discovered in my own life and in the lives of churches sometimes, and it may be in yours, that while God has appointed these times, often we have a tendency to not wait on Him. I have a tendency to quit too soon. In the process, I miss the glory of God. So do churches who quit. I quit when I really need to press on and press through. Sometimes I get tired of the struggle, tired of trying. In the end, I miss the blessings because I threw my hands up and said, Lord, I quit. Forget it. I want us to read part of Israeli history in Joshua chapter 6, verses 1 through 5, that when you read them, and this is a story you have read all of your life. If you've been in church since you were a kid, you know this story backwards and forwards. But it is an example of why we should not quit. Found in Joshua chapter 6, verses 1 through 5. And while it seems strange to read, you will find it is a normal day at the office for the Creator of the universe. I want you to stand with me in honor of the Word of God. Let's read this passage together. Now Jericho was a strongly fortified city because the Israelites, no one was leaving or entering. The Lord said to Joshua, look, I have handed Jericho, its king and its fighting men over to you. They're already yours. March around the city with all the men of war circling the city one time. Do this each day for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry 7 ram's horn trumpets in front of the ark. But on the 7th day, march around the city 7 times while the priests blow the trumpets. When there is a prolonged blast of the horn and you hear its sound, have all the people give a mighty shout. The city wall will collapse and the people will advance each man straight ahead. You may be seated. First of 3 things we have to remember and learn is the battle plan. A lesser man than Joshua might have looked at God and said, are you out of your ever-loving mind? I have never heard of anything so stupid in my entire life. That's about the dumbest thing I have ever heard anybody say. But we have to remember, Joshua is one of the few men still alive that saw frogs and the Nile run red with blood and the flies and lightning out of a clear sky and hail out of a clear sky. I mean, he had naked frogs, but he saw all of that. And then he saw the water part and they crossed on dry land. He saw the pillar of fire and the pillar of cloud. He saw water spring from a rock. He saw the serpents come and healing by looking at the serpent lifted up on the post. He saw all of that. I've never seen anything like that. Seen God do some miraculous things, but never anything so physical and so apparent. You got to admit that there's no way under heaven any of us in this room would have ever come up with such a plan. This thing is complete with marching, trumpets, Ark of the Covenant, priests, flags, shouting. It's almost like a halftime at the Georgia-Auburn game. I mean, it must have been something else. It makes no military sense whatsoever. No military man in his right mind would have done such a thing. One thing I have noticed in 43 years of ministry is that God's plans that are infinite often don't fit into my finite mind very well. Joshua was either about to learn or relearn a lesson that we need to learn. Every one of us. I don't care if you're 20 or you're 150. You need to learn this lesson and get it straight. Sometimes you have to be willing to look ridiculous and be radical to live a remarkable life. You have to allow, the guys up on the wall in the city, I'm going to get to the city in a minute, it's fortified like you would not believe. They were looking down, they had to be laughing at these guys. They had to be throwing rocks at them, making fun of them. Especially the second day. The first day they didn't know what to expect. And they marched around the city one time and the guys leave to go back to camp. What was that? What was that? The second day was when the laughing began. They're going to do it again. Oh, this is going to be great. We get a show. You know, I used to call when we used to go to the Texas Roadhouse. They don't do it much anymore, but the kids, the waitresses would all dance. You know, in the middle of supper, they play a tune, and these kids would all get in the aisle and dance, and I used to call it restaurant dinner and a show. You got dinner and a show, all for the same price. No overhead, no extra payment, no 2-drink minimum, just dinner to show. It was great. The choices, that you may want to write this one down, the choices we make when you feel God's nudge to move forward will often become the hinges on which your destiny in this world will swing. That doesn't mean that we're all going to be big, huge churches. It doesn't mean we're all going to be pastors of big, huge churches. It just means where God's scheme of things, our destiny may hinge on what we do when God pushes us toward a direction. This city of Jericho at these crossroads was one of the most strategic cities in this part of the ancient world. It was so strategic, it has been inhabited since 11,000 BC. It sat right at the crossroads. And it had to be taken. They could not, the Israelis could not have moved into the promised land with this armed city to their back. If they had done that, it would have been disastrous. They would have left an armed, powerful military at their back. And they could not do that, and God knew that. Notice the words, I don't know which translation you have. It uses strongly fortified or shut up. That means two things. One is you couldn't get in, and nobody inside could get out. They locked it up tight. Sometimes we can feel like our lives are tightly shut and everything is fortified against us. For Joshua and his boys at this moment, it would have been easy to look at those walls, those soldiers on top of them, and realize just how old this place is, and they didn't have been attacked before and it hadn't fallen yet. And then Joshua tells them the plan. How would you like to be Joshua? You get all the army together and say, boys, this is what we're going to do. Nope, you won't need your swords right away. Nope, you won't need your shields. Put those in your belt, put them on your back. You're not going to need them. We're just going to march around the city one time a day for 6 days. Can you imagine the conversation at the campfire at night those 6 days? Wives, honey, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. You're not going to do that again tomorrow, are you? Yeah? Well, I don't know about Joshua's wives, but you keep doing that kind of nonsense and we're out of here. That is really dumb. Joshua tells them the plan, and they thought probably Joshua was smoking something he shouldn't have been smoking. That had to be. I mean, who would have ever come up with this and said, and you got to remember, these are the people that griped all the way across the wilderness, and they hadn't seen the water. They hadn't seen the other things. They'd seen God do some pretty neat things, but they hadn't seen the big stuff, and they had griped and complained all the way across. In our text in verse 2, God tells General Joshua that he had already delivered the city to them. He says to them, he didn't say, I will deliver it. He says, I have already delivered it. It's done. God had already done it. But here's the thing, Joshua and the Israelis had to obey. They had to suit up, get the trumpets, get their shields, and march, putting one foot in front of the other, for God to do what He did. Now, He didn't have to have it that way, but that's the way God set it up. I find it fascinating that God sometimes speaks in past tense to our present situation. And we have to remember that time is different for someone who is, who was, and is to come, all at the same time. When all you see, here's the thing, what happens when what God has told you doesn't match up with what you see? God said, I've already delivered this to you. And you look up and you see the walls, you see the soldiers, you see their arms, you see their weapons, you see the bad guys all standing up there, and you said, I'm not sure I understand this concept. I have already delivered it. I have to tell you that there are times in my ministry over the last many years when I am doing everything I know to do. I am calling upon every bit of training I have ever been given. I'm doing everything I know to do. I think I'm being obedient to where God has put me doing what He called me to do, and I still don't see movement. You have to remember that Joshua and his army marched around this city for 6 days, and as far as they could tell, nothing happened. Not a rock, not a stone, unless it was thrown at them, not one thing fell. Now, I can see how it kind of unnerved the folks on the other side, but they kind of thought probably by the 6th day, if this is all they're going to do, we really don't have a thing to worry about here. This is where I have a tendency to give up. Come on, God. One little brick. The whole wall doesn't have to fall, just a brick. One stone. Throw me a bone here, God. Just one. I am so radically tired of the constant, consistent struggle we have to accomplish what we need to do with the resources that we have. I thought the story I told in the bulletin was very interesting. I know it to be a true story, by the way, because it comes from somebody I know. If you didn't read the bulletin, a man in a Midwestern church, it wasn't a Baptist church, it was another denomination, but he was asked by the pastor of the church to be the chairman of the stewardship committee. He said, all right, under 2 conditions. Number 1, there will not be a report for 1 year. Number 2, you can ask me no questions during that year. At the end of the year, he paid off the church's debt of $500,000. They had remodeled the sanctuary. They had given the missions on a consistent basis. They had done this, that, and the other thing. It was a small town, small church. They'd done all the things they were supposed to do and had $10,000 in the bank. When he gave his report, they asked, how did you accomplish all this? He said, well, every one of you has to do business with me. I'm the only grain elevator in town for 2 counties. I got the only one. And all of you who come to this church brought me your business. I simply withheld 10% of what you made and gave it to the church, and you never missed it. That's how I did everything in ministry. Now, I don't know that that's all that ethical, but I got to tell you, the point was well made and well received. I wish I could tell you that our finances are because I'm a spendthrift and I like to spend money and I just go out and buy stuff. In 13 years, I have been to 1 state convention and I paid for the trip, and I've been to 1 Southern Baptist convention and somebody else paid for the trip. We don't have staff meeting in the Caribbean. We don't do any of that sort of thing. And there are things, 100 things I could name. If somebody said money was no object, I have a list.
Me too.
Yeah. We need new microphones. We could use a new soundboard. We could use enough money to take those lights and put them over there. Because why would you put lights there and a sound booth there? It makes only in a Baptist church does it make any sense. Nowhere else does it make any sense. The parking lot desperately needs to be repaired, resealed, and repainted. I became acutely aware of the fact that we need a new fellowship hall last Thursday. We need a new kitchen. We need if we're going to do those kind of things, we really do need a new facility. Quite frankly, I would like to see that all the bills get paid on time, and I would like to see us increase our mission support. We can't seem to keep up with the little missions we give now, and we don't give near what we used to give in percentage-wise, and I'd like to see that percentage increase till it's back to 10%, and we pay it on time. Because those missionaries out there on the field, and I get especially stressed by those who only have their initials there. They are serving in places where their lives will be forfeit if they are found. And they go and support them while they're there. That's the contract we made with them. And my failure to lead you out of this situation after nearly 13 years either says something about me, or about you, or about God's plan for all of us, and maybe all three. But that's what a lot of Mondays I have to fight through to preach, prepare to preach on Sunday, because I am ready to quit. And God says, I know you've asked for a hint. One brick, one rock. Well, it's not time yet. You just keep walking. Now that we understand the battle plan and the frustration, I need us to understand the second thing for the day. And that is, just because you don't see God at work doesn't mean He isn't. In John 5:17, the Lord Jesus says, my Father is always at work, to this very day, and I too am working. The implication is, no matter what your eyes see, God is at work. Hebrews 10:35 through 36 is the commentary on that passage, on Jesus' words in John, and it says, so do not throw away your confidence, it will be richly rewarded. You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what He promised. How many of you in this room know who William Wilberforce was? It's not surprising. Most people don't know who William Wilberforce was. He was a member of Parliament in the 1700s in England. And he is the driving force that got slavery outlawed throughout the entire British Empire. In 1790, he was worn out. His health was failing. Mainly because of all the effort he put into his charge. He believed it was God's will for this to happen. And he was struggling, and he was ready to resign his seat in Parliament. He was ready to just go and recover from his illness. He was ready to give up. And he opened his Bible to read, and a piece of paper fluttered out of the Bible, and he bent down to pick it up, and it was a letter been written several years before to him from John Wesley. If you don't know who John Wesley is, John Wesley is the founder of the Methodist Church. The letter says, unless the divine power has raised you up, I see not how you can go through your glorious enterprise in opposing that abominable practice of slavery, which is the scandal of religion, of England, and of human nature. Unless God has raised you up for this very thing, you will be worn out by the opposition of men and devils. But if God be for you, who can be against you? Or all of them together stronger than God? Oh, be not weary of well-doing. Go in the name of God and in the power of His might. Wow. That'll get you. That'll make your blood run. Today we might be turning the corner. I want you to think about this. This may be lap number 7 on the 7th day. Suppose we stopped and said, Lord, this isn't working. We've marched around this city for 6 days. And today we've hit 6 laps. And you haven't done a blooming thing. Nothing. You know what Einstein said the definition of insanity is, don't you? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Well, I got to tell you, that's kind of what we do in Baptist churches sometimes. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If you've got 20 years experience in a Baptist church, you do not have 20 years experience. You have 1 year's experience 20 times, because we do the same thing over and over. Like we give missions, state missions, home missions, foreign missions. We have mission study. We do the first responders lunch. We have Thanksgiving lunch. We have Christmas programs. We have Easter programs, and we do them all every year the same way. Or we might throw a few things into the mix-up every now and then, but it's really the same thing over and over and over again. And we expect different results. We go out, we invite people, we share the gospel, we put newspaper reports out, we put signs out, we do all of this, and we can say this isn't working. Those people are laughing our heads off at us. We can't compete with the big boys. What if the Israelis had stopped at the beginning of lap 7 on the 7th day and said, nope, not doing this again. I've looked foolish long enough. They would have missed the power of God and the blessing that God promised them. And that's the third point. How many times have we missed the blessing of God because we stopped too soon? Maybe you've wondered with me, Lord, how much longer will I have to wait until God brings my prodigal child home? How much longer will I have to struggle with an unbelieving mate? How much longer will I have to endure this dead-end job? I have done my best to be faithful. How much longer, Lord, before we see your power? How many more laps do I have to walk before the walls come down? In 1972, NASA launched a probe. It was the first time anything like this had ever been tried. Her name was Pioneer 10. And her job was to go to Jupiter and take pictures and measure the radiation and the atmosphere. That was it. Most of the scientists were sure that she'd never make it across the asteroid belt. That she'd be flying through there and some asteroid would come along like you see in Star Wars and splat. No more pine. There goes a couple of $1 billion right there. Bam! Right up against that asteroid. Pioneer 10 accomplished its mission. She swung past the giant planet of Jupiter on November 1973, and the immense gravity of Jupiter took Pioneer 10 and hurled her at a higher rate of speed toward the edge of the solar system. At 1 billion miles from the Sun, Pioneer 10 passed Saturn. At some 2 billion miles, she hurled past Uranus, Neptune at nearly 3 billion miles, and Pluto at nearly 4 billion miles from the Sun. By 1997, 25 years after its launch, Pioneer 10 had more than 6 billion miles from the Sun, and her battery was only supposed to last 3 years. Remember when we started? 1972. It is now 1997. And despite the immense distance, Pioneer 10 continued to send back signals of what she found and saw. It took 9 hours from the time the transmission began till it was picked up by the satellites around the Earth. Do you know how strong her battery was? 8 watts. About the power of a nightlight. 8 watts. Finally, on January 23rd, 2003, 7.9 billion miles from the Sun, she stopped transmitting. We don't know whether the battery ran out or she hit something. We have no way of ever knowing, and I suspect we will never know. 7.9 billion miles from the Sun. Here's the thing, people. Sometimes God can do more with 8-watt abilities than He can do with anything else, because those 8 watts are willing to trust Him. So it is when we offer ourselves to the Lord. God can work through someone even if they only have 8-watt abilities. But here's the thing, God cannot and He will not work through somebody who quits. Ever. I don't have the answer to the question, how much longer. But I do know this. We are closer today than we were yesterday. And for all I know, we're on the seventh lap of the seventh day. And we just need to put one foot in front of the other and keep being obedient to the Father. May I remind you what Joshua 6:20 says. When the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed, and everyone charged straight in, and they took the city. We have to remember that the most powerful force on the planet is God's grace. We also have to remember that the entire Bible is about Jesus. From Genesis 1:1 all the way to the last verse of the last chapter of the book of Revelation, it is about Jesus. And this story is a picture of Christ. Nobody expected the resurrection on the way to Golgotha. Oh, the evidence was there. Jesus had proven that dead men got up. But nobody, I'm telling you, nobody expected Easter walking to Golgotha. But it was only because Jesus put one foot in front of the other and went to that mountain and died that we have the resurrection and we have the promise of eternal life. Knowing the human beings the way I know them, we are gossipers, we are talkers. I can just hear the yang around the campfire every night after the walk. Fifth night, all we did was walk around this thing. May we never settle for mediocre faith that is less than God intends. But Dr. Mike, you don't understand my situation. You know, you're right. I may not. But God does. In fact, God's not surprised by your situation. God's not surprised by our situation. Maybe the old cliche when we say it's time to fish or cut bait is appropriate. It's time to grab our trumpet, put on our walking shoes, and get in line, trusting God that when the trumpet blows and the shout is given, the walls will come down. Let's pray.